Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. I'm Jan Moray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan. And Mona selected the topic for today. She always has clever topics, clever titles. Where there's a choice, there's a chance. And she said, we've all heard where there's a will, there's a way, but that's a little twist on that, and it's a good food for thought. So what were you thinking about that, Mona?
Well, I'm thinking that sometimes, if you just set your will to it, if you just put your mind to it, just set your will to it, then you'll accomplish it. And personally, I've set my mind to a lot of things that didn't follow through on. So to me, and again, everything, it's on to us. The way we see something is the way we see it. And others may not see it that way. But to me, making it a choice gives it just a little bit of freedom there, that instead of I will do this, making that absolute declaration, because whenever I am choosing things, then it's like I could choose this or I could choose that. It's like there's more flexibility there.
Okay.
And so I think about that. It was 1944, and with all of the atoms and the bombs and all of the things that was going off in World War II and so forth, that Max Planck was the one that gave the terminology to quantum theory. And in the ensuing years, there's been more and more and more research on it and looking at things and how that everything that we believe is changing. And things can change. One of them is that things can change just by watching them. Bruce Lipton came up with that as a scientist. He was looking at it and he was observing it and just observing it. Whereas he put the ones away in the freezer without being observed and went back and looked at them and they didn't change. But the ones that were observed began to change. So it just helps me see more and more and more how that we can change our mind. And when we do change our mind, we really do begin to change our beliefs. We begin to change our world. We just begin to change everything.
Yeah, our beliefs are huge because that's the lens through which we see the world.
Right. And where do our beliefs come from?
What we've heard all our lives.
What we've heard all our lives. Plus, we have been given these wonderful 5 gates that takes information into our brain, which is our senses. And, we are driven by our senses. We're just driven by them. And in what we believe, in what we can touch, what we can taste, what we can see. If I see it, I see it. The thing of it is I may see it differently than you see it.
Yes.
And, if I hear it, I hear it. If I don't hear it, I don't hear it. We give so much value to, so much credence to our senses, and they are wonderful. And yet, these senses deceive us. How many times do we think we see something and we don't?
Yeah.
Or how many times do we think we have heard something and we haven't, or we heard it in a different way? And these senses are often the cause of our distraction and helps us, become deluded and have some illusions in life because we are constantly overestimating their authority. Because, if I see
take them as being real and fact, and you don't question it because what I saw.
Right.
And our brains play tricks with us on what we saw because we think we saw something, and then a few hours later, a few days later, what we saw can change in our minds.
Exactly. And looking back, we may think, well, our intuition alerted us about something, but then when we get there, we're just merely observing what we observed before or observing the changes or whatever. Anyway, bottom line is we really do hear what we want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
We feel what we want to feel. But that can be real off-putting. I was talking with someone just earlier today that was talking about I mean, I hesitate to bring it up, so we're not going to go into any kind of depth, but bringing up politics. And I made the comment, I said, you know what? All sides only hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And those physical senses, they're difficult to compete with because we just so believe. We believe what we believe. We believe what we see. We believe. And so I was thinking if we could just begin to look at choices. The more I look at choices, in a changing world, we are limited only by the way we think of things.
Yeah.
The situations, we're limited. We're never more than a belief away from our greatest adventure. We're never more than a belief away from our greatest love, our greatest change, our greatest happiness, as we are cognizant of changing our mind, of changing the way we see something. Instead of that, it's not enough, it's that we'll make it do. It's enough for now. We may need more tomorrow, but hey, we've got enough for right now. And right now is the only time that we have at our disposal.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. The other night I was struggling a little bit, and I was having trouble going to sleep because I was ruminating about all these things that just weren't going right. I'm having trouble here, and this is not going the way I want it to. I lost this, and then finally I got up from my bed and I said, stop. So I grabbed my puzzle book and I went outside so I wouldn't disturb my husband. Well, out in the hallway, not outside. and I started saying, I'm so grateful for what all I have. I have a wonderful husband. I have a wonderful life. I said, let me try to change what I'm thinking, because it was just driving me crazy thinking those thoughts. And then, doing my puzzle, it helps me to focus so much on something else that I'm able to get rid of all that negativity. And I mean, it's so true. I mean, if you allow yourself to be thinking on a political view of the person, and where you don't like the person at all, and so nothing that person's going to do is you're going to approve of. You're always going to find something wrong.
Right.
But if you can open up your mind and see, what one good thing is there. Let's try to focus on what is going well, of anything that is going in the right direction.
Yeah. So you change your thoughts, you begin to change the way you feel.
Absolutely. I mean, it is. I mean, if nobody's ever tried that, just do it. Because like that other night, I was feeling, really bad and depressed, and started, coming down on myself. And then after I threw all that away and started thinking the other way, the next morning I woke up happy.
Exactly. And it reminds me of the movie A Few Good Men, and you can't handle the truth.
Right.
Well, whenever we want to say, well, I can't change my feelings, I can't change this, I can't change that, you don't want to handle the truth. You don't know how to handle the truth, because the truth is, it really does. Now, do you have to keep doing it again and again and again? It's like, everything needs to have some practice to it.
Right.
But if you just on purpose, deliberately make up your mind to think another thought, or to look at what you are grateful for, or to realize the fact that, there is a source of an irritant, but what else is good about the person? Right. What else is good about the system? What else is good about life in general?
And I think that's what's so great about not believing that depression or anxiety and all those things are biological. Because if they're biological, then you have no control over them. Whereas if you believe that you do have control over your emotions, you can change them. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a few seconds or a few minutes. It might take time, but at least you're starting to learn that you do have control over how you feel.
Yes, that we have more control than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And so I ask you, where do our beliefs come from? Well, yeah, they come from our senses, because we can see, we can feel, but they also come from our family. Mm-hmm. They come from all these things that we have been told, And so sometimes we need to, if we're upset about something, well, I've been told that this disease or this depression or this whatever is in our genes, it's comes down through the family. Maybe if we just say, well, why did I buy into that? Who owns that?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't own it, well, I just think about, there was a little dog that had a hurt foot, and I was out this morning at a place, and this lady came by and she said, I came to see if I can find that dog. She was so concerned about it because she wanted to take it to the Humane Society and see what, they could do for the dog. Anyway, come to find out, the dog belonged to someone else. And then all of a sudden, what was she thinking about the person that owned the dog that wasn't taking care of it?
Right.
And whenever we begin to get angry at that or upset about things like that, who owns it? And if it's not ours, we can do things about things. We can speak up. We can say something. But if it's not ours, don't take ownership of it.
Yeah, that's a hard one for a lot of people because you want to help it. Because I wasn't the best animal owner, though, I like animals, but they're animals. I don't treat them like people. I don't treat them like kids. I treat them well. I feed them well, but, and you see what so many people do, and it's like, well, I just don't believe in doing that. Does that make me a bad person? Because I let my dog sit out in the rain, and there's places for him to go and get out of the rain if he needs to, and but it's
yeah. And if he won't, he doesn't. And of course, take care of them as if they're hurt and have a swollen paw. Check it out to see what the problem is. I'm not saying that. Right. I'm saying that if we don't own it, it really, sometimes we cause more trouble by trying to
peddling.
Yeah. So, and what we believe sometimes is really, really strange. And to us, it's illogical. I had knew a person one time that she was talking about that whenever she was younger, hopefully much younger, but when she was younger, she thought that all dogs were males and all cats were females.
Oh. I can understand that.
Are you crazy? Well, we're all a little crazy. We do think things that are, and then when we find out about them, instead of you get upset sometimes for the person that introduced your error to you.
Right.
Which goes back to the fact that we can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Okay.
And the truth is, if we're not so frustrated about something and we choose to give the benefit of the doubt, how relieving that can be, not only toward us, but the strength of the relationship with the person that is so dogmatic about something or anything.
Yeah.
As we just begin to give a choice, I can choose to not be offended. I can choose to not be offended.
Yeah. And I can choose to understand that not everybody thinks the same way about this as I do. And it's okay. It doesn't make their way wrong. It's just different. And it may bother me. I may feel uncomfortable watching this dog hurt, but I have to trust that the owner is taking care of it. Maybe the owner had already taken it to the vet, and the vet said, well, there's really not a whole lot we can do. Just watch it. She doesn't know.
Right. And then perception is choices we make. We choose how we're going to perceive something. And if we can begin to change our perception toward it, well, I think so much that many, many times something can be solved so easily whenever we just make a decision.
Yeah.
To just, instead of going around and around and around and driving ourselves crazy, or instead of arguing with, or instead of, whether we say anything or not, putting someone down, just make a decision to realize the only person that I have any say-so over is me.
Mm-hmm.
And as we begin to make that choice to,
And I think that choice is harder when we're dealing with our own children, because we do have an idea of how we want them to live, how we want them to be, and all that kind of stuff. But they need to be who they are and find their own path and do their own things. But if it's not quite what you like, you might feel uncomfortable, and it's hard to step back and allow them to do what they want to do. But it is their life.
yeah, 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 yeah. And well, or children or family members. Sometimes it
Yeah.
can be a sibling or a
Right.
mate or
Right.
someone else in the family that you just really have such a good idea, and maybe ask for their permission to share it with them.
Right.
And then we definitely don't own it. They own it, because or if they take it, if they don't want to own it, we can't make them own it.
No, we can't. We can't. But we need to be able to get our opinion out there, not doing it in a way that's telling them that they're wrong and they need to look at something else, but say, I have a little different perspective on this. It goes back to, again, just giving information instead of passing judgment. Of course, it can always be taken as being judgmental, but you try to make it clear up front that you're not. And
It's not the intention to be.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and that you want the
And then,
best for them. And, have you ever considered this?
right. And back in making choices, for myself, I began to look and say, oh, you're being judgmental, but you know what? I'm being judgmental of you for judging.
Right. For thinking that you're being judgmental.
Right. And so I have to realize that, and I am choosing to be judgmental. I am choosing to be argumentative. I am choosing to be whatever it is. I'm choosing to just letting ourselves know that we are making those choices,
Right.
and letting ourselves know that I'm choosing to be happy. I'm choosing to be pleasant. I'm choosing to smile. I'm choosing to overlook this. I'm choosing to, and to me, that is empowering.
Yes, it is.
That other people do influence us, but sometimes their influence is for the negative, and I can choose how I respond to this regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that our emotions are triggered by what we see, think, by all those things in our that comes in through those 5 gates. And
Right.
our emotions are designed to chemically reinforce something in the long-term memory. And sometimes we may be frustrated over this because it's bringing back to something else that we've held on to forever. And what happens within us really creates what happens without us, or outside of us.
Outside. Yeah.
Yeah, what happens outside of us. And being non-judgmental is a huge state where we can affect great change.
Yeah.
To just receive anything that comes in. It goes back to Rumi. Oh, but they're robbing me. They're taking everything. And Rumi says, you have more room for stuff.
Yeah, for more stuff, new stuff.
So just to be receptive of everything, because there's beauty in it, there's wisdom in it, there's a blessing in it, even though it really is part of those illusions, part of those things that we're seeing, but we can't really see what's there.
Yeah. But I think the big thing is being aware that you do have this one belief and you're choosing to act this way, but knowing that you could act differently if you wanted to, instead of just reacting and being that way, and just letting things happen. To put a little thought into it as to, wow, why did I get so emotional about that? It's really not that big a deal. What was going on? Maybe I should question what my beliefs are.
Yeah, Yeah. Yeah. And so where do our beliefs come from? They come from our senses, they come from our family, they come from science, they come from history. And, we say, well, we can't relive the past, but we can forgive the past. We can be non-judgmental of the past, whether it was someone else or us or whatever. I was talking with this lady the other day, and she was talking about a situation that happened, and I made the comment. I said, well, could you think about that? I said, you can't go back to it. It was then and this is now. But could you see anything that you could think about it a little differently? And she began to think of a couple of things. She said, well, I maybe put too much weight on this. I maybe put too much weight on that. And anyway, at the end of our conversation, she made the comment. She said, you know what? We really did rewrite the past.
That's a good way to think of it.
And I'm thinking, no, wait a minute. Then I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's what I'm talking about here. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We can rewrite the past. Because, well, if we remember that thing again, it's going to be remembered differently.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we sometimes maybe fuss with our siblings because they remember an event one way and we remember it another way? But the thing of it is, there's so many Christmases, there's so many birthdays, there's so many celebrations that we get together that they have so many like things going on in each one that we may have the year wrong that we're remembering that certain thing. But it's not a reason to argue about it.
Right.
Especially if it's from the past.
Oh, I know, because there's no way to prove who's right.
Right.
There's no way to settle it. So why even go there? It's one of those, let's agree to disagree. You saw it your way, I saw it my way, but it's okay.
Yeah. And that's just like, whenever I made the comment to someone, I said, well, everyone, all sides is hearing exactly what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And came up with, yeah, but there should be some kind of proof. And it goes back to the fact that our proof sometimes is what we want to be proof. But
yeah, we can find things to prove what we want to prove. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's looking at the fact that in this quantum theory world, that quantum energy world that we're in, that things do change by observing them. And as we can observe them and realize what it's waiting for a decision to make, or maybe when I come to a decision of things work out regardless. I mean, having worked with prisoners for so long and looking at how they could be so upset about something and what their parole officer said and all this kind of stuff, and yet, they could see no way that there could ever be anything to change. And yet we make it through it. Mm-hmm. We make it through it. And we could make it through it a little bit easier if we just think about what we're thinking about and make it a little lighter. Make it a little more pleasant all the way around.
To try to find something positive about it, something we learn from it.
Yeah, something that we can learn from it.
Yeah.
And so if I'm thinking this thought, then obviously I can relinquish that thought.
Easier said than done, though, sometimes.
Can we stand the truth or not? And then notice about how light it feels, how much that weight on the shoulder is gone. Mm-hmm. And, sit down, and all those weights that you're carrying with you, just let them roll off on the floor. If you absolutely have to have them, you can take them with you when you leave.
Right. But you're choosing to take them with you.
Right, if you choose to. So it is looking at, and that's why I'm saying if we make a choice there may be a chance that we can make some changes. Whereas if we are so willful, with I've set my mind to it and I'm not about to see anything differently, then it becomes harmful physically, mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
relationally.
You become blind to so many things.
Yeah, yeah. So if you don't like your situation, whatever it is, change your mind about it. See something in it that is worthwhile, that is redeemable.
Yeah.
See something, just
Yeah. I mean, you always have the option to leave. You know, a lot of people that don't like where they are, you know, they really aren't thinking of leaving. And so if you can say, okay, I've chosen not to leave, but I don't like the way it is. So what can I do to change me so that I can tolerate it or accept the way it is? Because I can't change anybody else. I can't make anybody else do anything, but I can affect some change within myself, starting with my thoughts.
right. I look at the fact that, it's a deal. It's a deal.
It's a
all right.
deal.
But is it a deal breaker? And there have been a couple of times, that for me, I realized, it's not a deal breaker. I mean, it's irritating,
Yes.
but it's not a deal breaker.
But that
And
builds
so,
character, right?
yeah,
Dealing with that irritation, learning how to do that.
and so because it's not a deal breaker, how can I be a little bit more pleasant in receiving this? Because, I can't shut someone else up,
No.
but I can receive. And I'll just let it pass through. It's not going to choke me.
Mhm.
It's not going to stop up the system. It's going to pass through. Because do I not have a right to an opinion? Well, yeah, you do. And so lay it on me. I'll hear it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good to allow people, especially people who are close to us, to tell us what it is that they think. Because, I mean, we're helping them as well, because when they're keeping it inside and trying not to say anything, I mean, it does make the relationship a little bit more stressful. So let's get it out. Let's do it in a friendly and just communicative way, not a condescending or judgmental way. But I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you think, because by listening to what you think, I don't have to do it. I don't have to put any credence to it. I'm just allowing you to say what you think, and then I make a decision on what if it's going to affect where I go from here.
Yeah. And so as our time is about running out, I'll just kind of reiterate that I was looking at where there's a will, there's a way. Sometimes we become so willful that if we could just relax it a little bit, but where there's a choice, there's a chance. Or if we could look at even with there's a will, there's a way, as we become willing to not make it a deal breaker, we can become more communicable. And if not at that one particular time, at least the next time.
Yeah. So in your will, you're not hurting anybody. When you're when you're going forward with your will, you're finding a way to get what you want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that today, Mona. Good thing to think about and talk about. And next week we will have an extra person maybe on with us. Mona and I will be together. We will be broadcasting together next week, and so we'll see how that goes. But we hope to